the second path of the Power Couple session webinar series with me, Alea, and
me, Doug.
we're going to be doing an overview of what we talked about in the first webinar series, or the first webinar, and then we're going to be diving deeper into other tools that you can start utilizing to create a very healthy, powerful, supportive relationship with your partner.
So in the first session, we introduced you to the idea of affect labeling. And affect labeling is a big word, a big phrase that basically means that we're listening to the emotions of another person and reflecting back those emotions. And what we have learned as a couple and what we teach is that one of the greatest needs that we all have is the need to be heard and deeply validated. And you can solve just about every relationship problem in the world if all you do is listen to and reflect back emotions. And that's a process known as affect labeling. You'll recall that the 3 steps to affect labeling, the how of affect labeling, is to first of all learn how to ignore the words. That doesn't mean that you're ignoring the person. It just means for the next minute or two, you're not going to really pay much attention to the words. And the reason you don't want to pay attention to the words is so that you don't get triggered. You don't get sucked into the emotions of your partner, and you're able to stay outside of the emotions for the moment. And it also frees up bandwidth for you to do the next 2 steps. The second step of affect labeling is learning how to read emotions. And it turns out that our brains are hardwired from evolution to be able to read another person's emotions very quickly and very accurately. All we have to do is get out of our own way. And so the way we do that is to simply quiet our minds, just empty your mind of thought, pay attention to everything in front of you, everything your partner is saying and doing, and just let your brain process. And it will automatically process what's going on. And in a moment or two, emotions will start coming up. And as those emotions come up, you move to the third step, which is you name the emotions using a you statement. So I would say, so Alea, you're really angry. You're really upset. You feel disrespected. You feel ignored. You feel unappreciated and unsupported. And you just feel like things are just really unfair.
No, I'm frustrated.
You're just feeling really frustrated. And you're worried and concerned about this. It's causing you a lot of anxiety. And you're a little bit embarrassed because it just seems like you shouldn't be this way, but you are. And the whole thing is making you really sad. You feel disconnected and you're upset and distressed and unhappy.
I feel like I shouldn't be reactive.
And so you're judging yourself because you're feeling like you shouldn't be reactive. So you're being self-critical and self-judgmental. And you feel, in this moment, you feel abandoned and unloved and unsupported.
I feel shame.
And you feel shame. Feel a lot of shame. And you are really at a loss about what to do about it because it's not something that you've been able to fix so far.
Yeah.
All right, so there's an example of all I did was use you statements. And we're going to use the use. Well, they did it perfectly. Did you see at the end what she did? You saw the yes, exactly, and the sigh, and her shoulders dropped, and she nodded her head. Even in a simple little role play, we all do this. It's automatic. And those are relaxation responses that we watch for, because as soon as you see that, you're done. And now you're ready. If you need to do any problem solving or apologizing or discussion or negotiation, now is when you can start, because everybody's calm.
But not before then.
Not before. The de-escalate, then problem solve. That's the mantra. And the reason our relationship is so powerful is because we use this tool. Fortunately, we don't have to use it very often, but we do.
No, but we actually use it every single day.
Well, that's true.
With the positive of you're happy today, you're excited, or you're tired, or you're a little stressed, or you're a little worried. Just these very little casual you statements. And then if Doug isn't feeling that way, I don't get defensive that I was wrong. He'll tell me how he's feeling, and then I'll validate that experience. So we want to let go of being attached to being right or wrong.
Right. The other practice we've taken up lately using affect labeling is in the morning, our morning routine is to get up and have a cup of coffee in the hot tub and watch the sun come up in our beautiful California home in the central Sierra Nevada. And now we're engaging in the practice of asking each other, how do you feel right now? And how do you want to feel? What's your intention for how you want to feel during the day? And we'll try to pick an emotion or a feeling that we want to carry throughout the day. And that helps us maintain mindfulness during the day of setting our intentions early about how we want to be.
But we can't bring that practice in until we have de-escalated, until it's become a safe space to be with the emotional experience.
That's a pretty advanced practice. So let me talk just for a minute, give you a little bit more stuff to work with, and then we'll move on to the next topic, which is meeting your own needs. So the way that you want to practice this with each other is you want to go very slowly and very gently. And it's storytelling, where one person is going to tell a story of something that happened during the day that has a little bit of emotional kick to it. Nothing really dramatic, but just a little annoyance, frustration, whatever it might be. And the listener is going to listen and be non-judgmental and non-critical, go into the Buddha bubble. You remember we talked about that. And simply reflect back the emotions. And keep reflecting back the emotions until the speaker says exactly, or nods their head and sighs and says, thank you, I really feel heard. Remember the layers of emotions. We gave you the layers of emotions. Go back and look at the last video to get those. It's very briefly, it's anger, disrespect, anxiety or fear, shame, sadness, and abandonment. And in the last session, we teased those out so that you have a pretty good working vocabulary of different words, and just use those layers as data structures so that you can organize the way that you're going to affect label. And the practice should be, try to do the practice every day for 5 minutes with your partner, and do it with your children if you've got children. You can practice on your dogs and cats too. They like it too. They don't know what you're saying, but they like the attention. And then over a 4 to 6 to 8 week period, if you practice this every single day, you'll slowly get mastery of it. And it's not that difficult, but it's like riding a bike. If you don't practice it and fall off your bike a couple of times, you're never going to learn how to ride it down a steep hill. So you got to work at it.
So essentially that second layer of the affect labeling is telling story and validating the emotions in the story, whether it's good or bad.
That's right. Just practicing, doing a simple little practice where it's a disciplined practice every day. Sit down, have a glass of wine, or I'm a whiskey guy myself, so I'll have some whiskey.
Or a cup of tea.
And just sit down across the table and practice this. Make it a conscious practice. And that will very rapidly deepen your bonds and your intimacy and your trust. You will be amazed at the results.
And I would say that practicing this for 6 weeks, if you don't have big issues, if there isn't a lot of resentment that's built up over the years, 6 weeks to practice this skill set before you start practicing the skill set with something that is triggering.
Right.
3 months of practicing this every single day with just little stories, nothing triggering, not a big deal, just getting used to the validating of the emotions with a story before you even think. I mean, this is my advice. Doug, you might have a different perspective. Before you bring the big, hot, woolly mammoth elephant under the rug onto the table and validate, unless you're in a situation where you have to make a decision, then you create your ground rules of, we're just going to validate the emotions. We have to get de-escalated before we even think about going to problem solving. So give yourself a good period of time of just practicing the skill set before you put it under pressure.
Now, if you have a situation where you have, for example, difficult issues or difficult conversations that you need to have, this is not, as you're beginning to learn how to listen to emotions, this is not the time to jump into the deep end of the pool. I'm going to put a link in the chat for everybody. This is not a webinar where we're trying to promote ourselves, but this is a service I provide where you can contact me and I'll facilitate your difficult conversation for you. I'll transform it for you. So, and let's see if I can.
Is there anything else that you want to share about that layer with affect labeling? And Doug, we can share the link later in the email.
Okay. No, that's good.
Okay.
So should we move on?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
move on. So was there anything else that you wanted to share?
No.
Okay. We're going to be talking now about the second tool to bring into your intimate relationships or just relationships with another person. And that second tool is all about being aware of and meeting your own needs. One of the greatest challenges in relationship is we give responsibility for our needs to be addressed, met, tended to the person that we are most intimate with, safe with, and the person that we love the most. Now, that might be a parent, it might be a child, it might be a partner. Often it is the partner, especially at the beginning of the relationship where there's this chemistry and all of these hopes and dreams, and then the honeymoon phase that is basically giving you the Dixie cup sampler of what is to come once you unpack and reprogram all of your stuff. And so the honeymoon phase, when you first were in your relationship, is a really great indicator of where you can get to, usually after 2 to 3 years of using these 5 tools that we're teaching in the webinar series to get to this really beautiful, healthy, incredibly safe, supportive, empowering relationship. So when you're in relationship with somebody, step one is validating the emotions, but step 2 is start being aware of your needs, and then being aware that you've given unconsciously and perhaps energetically, if you're energetically attuned, responsibility for your needs to your partner. And then you crank up your courage dial and you begin retrieving responsibility for those needs. And I'm going to be walking you through a process in just a moment, but I'm going to first have Doug share with you the core needs. It's like a hierarchy. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about needs and what happens when we give responsibility for our needs away.
Yeah, I'm sure you've all heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There was a lot of criticism of the hierarchy. And there's a guy by the name of John Burton who was a conflict theorist at George Mason University who wrote a book called Humans Needs Theory. And his theory was that all conflict arises from unmet human needs. But that raises the question, what is a human need as opposed to a human want? and it's not easy to say, but I think we can safely categorize needs in some categories. We have physical needs, obviously. We need food and water. We need shelter. We need physical safety. We need emotional safety in our relationships. We need spiritual safety. So we need all those different kinds of safety.
Sexual safety.
Sexual safety. That would be physical safety, part of physical safety. We have a need to be connected with other people. Humans are social animals. We're mammals. All mammals are social animals. So we have a need to be connected to other people. And we have a need to love and a need to be loved. So, and we have a need to be happy. We have a need to have fun and play. We have a need to exercise and move around. If any of these needs are removed from us, then we start to have problems. I mean, just think of all those needs I've listed. You can just think of all the problems that we start to have physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually if those needs are removed. And part of the problem in relationship is this, that for many people, they never grow out of the neediness of childhood. Think about a baby. A baby, an infant, is totally dependent upon parents for everything. And the parents become, of course, baby can't talk. All the baby can do is cry, really. And so the parents are trying to fill all the baby's needs. And the baby has needs, makes those needs known as much as possible. And the baby gets used to having the needs met kind of automatically.
Like someone intuiting their needs. They don't even have to like speak the words, I need ...
That's right. And then as they grow into children and they're toddlers and then preschoolers, they still have a lot of their needs met by mom and dad, but they begin to start getting some agency, especially around 5 or 6 years old, kindergarten. They start by agency. I mean, they're able to start being a little bit independent. They can do their own thing. They can feed themselves. They're toilet trained. They can dress themselves. I mean, they're starting to function with agency, but they still have a lot of needs met. And what happens, unfortunately, is that emotional maturation is oftentimes blunted or thwarted at between ages 6 and 8, because children learn that they're living in an emotionally unsafe environment. And this occurs because of emotional invalidation. The parents do this all the time. They don't realize how damaging it is. And it's stuff like saying, don't cry, don't be a sissy, don't be a girly girl, put on your big girl panties. It's not a big deal. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill.
It'll pass.
It'll pass. All those phrases that we use when a child is upset to the child it's called emotional invalidation. And there are just all kinds of studies out there that show that when you emotionally invalidate a child, you are really hurting them in terms of their emotional development. And a lot of this is based on the work of Gordon Neufeld out of Vancouver, BC, and others. So to the degree that we do not emotionally mature beyond 8 years old, really at a deep level, when we start getting into relationships, we still have all these unmet needs that we haven't learned how to fulfill ourselves. We're told as a child to not be selfish, to not be self-centered. And that is an okay thing for a child to learn, but that's the rule for a child. When you become an adult, you have to learn how to take care of yourself, and you have to be able to soothe and satisfy yourself. And that is, to a certain degree, a certain selfishness. It would have been considered selfishness in childhood, but in adulthood, it's considered to be emotionally mature to be able to do that. But if you can't do that, and you have this emptiness inside of you, then you look to your partner to have these basic needs met, because you've never learned how to fulfill them yourself. And the sad thing is that no human being can fulfill those needs until you fulfill them yourself.
And if you're looking for your needs to be fulfilled by another, and you're not meeting those needs inside yourself, no matter how much your partner is meeting your needs, it will never be enough. And vice versa. If your partner is constantly looking to you to fulfill its needs, and your partner isn't meeting those needs inside itself, no matter what you do, no matter how perfect you are, it will never be enough for them.
That's right. And that's where a lot of relationships go sideways. So Gibran talked about the oak and the sycamore tree, standing together but apart. And that's really what we're talking about here, is being the oak and the sycamore tree, where you are a self-contained adult, emotionally and spiritually mature adult, meeting your own needs, loving yourself, being whole and full. And that allows you to accept the love and grace of your partner, and allows you to give love and grace to your partner. But if you're not full inside, then that grace and love is it's impossible to accept, and it's impossible to give.
Should I dive into my piece, or was there anything else that you wanted to share?
That's it.
Okay. So practice time. Take out a pen and paper. Take a deep breath in. Pull yourself into your core. And think about your top 5 needs. What's really important to you? Is it really important? I'm just going to give you a list before you write these down. I'm just going to give you a list of the things that come to my mind, and then Doug, you can share your list of needs that you might think of. So we have a need to be respected. We have a need to be safe, to feel connected, to feel safe, to feel supported, to feel listened to, deeply heard, to feel appreciated, to feel loved. Doug, any other thoughts, needs? Encouraged?
No, I think those are really pretty core. And you'll notice that if you made a note of those words, they're in the second level of emotional layers, where the disrespect layer is in affect labeling, because those needs aren't being met. So people become very, very upset about that.
So
Let's short and simple for right now. So let's go through them. The need to be loved, the need to be heard, to be respected,
appreciated,
be appreciated, to be supported,
safe,
to be safe,
deeply listened to,
the need to be heard.
cherished. Cherished, you might have a need to feel cherished.
Right.
So with that list, and there might be other needs that you think of, take a moment and write down your 3 or 5 top needs that you have for yourself. Don't even think about what your partner's needs are. Partner, you get to sit with your pen and paper and write down your list of those 3 to 5 needs. Accepted was another one, to feel really accepted, valued. Just write down 3 to 5 of those needs.
Appreciated.
Appreciation, validation, validated, valued. And you could make a list of like 10 and then circle your top 3 or your top 5. And then at some point in time, not tonight, but tomorrow, in a couple days after this information is integrated, you and your partner could sit with each other and show each other, hey, these are my top 3, my top 5. And then your partner shares with you their top 3, their top 5. And then you know what's really important to your partner. And your partner then knows what's really important to you. And you could even make this list and, it's like Alea, Doug, it's on the refrigerator. Under Alea's, it's, dot, dot, dot. Under Doug's, it's dot, dot, dot. So every single day you're looking at that list on the fridge and reminding yourself about what your needs are and reminding yourself about what your partner's needs are, and starting to bring in a safer, more conscious, sensitive environment for the relationship to bloom and heal.
There's another practice that I just thought of. That's a great idea. And the practice that I would add to that is, when you see the 3 items that your partner has as listed as needs, then you can ask them every day, what are you doing? What have you done today to meet this need inside yourself?
But with a very curious, kind, compassionate tone.
Right. And I mean, it's not a cross-examination. You're prompting them to think about, well, what did I do today? Or you could ask the question, what are you going to do today to help yourself fill this need of, say, appreciation? How can you feel what's going to happen? How are you going to do that today?
And then another angle on that one could be, so when you think about your top core needs, what is it that you feel called to do today that would honor 1 or 2 of them or all of them? What could you do? Even if you only have 10 minutes today, because you're really busy all day. And so it's just, again, opening up this dialogue, or you could even share from your own perspective, hey, my top core need is dot, 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 or these 2 top needs that I'm feeling really drawn to do this to engage and get that need met for myself. So you're, again, actively engaged in meeting this need inside yourself instead of looking to your partner to meet those needs. And again, we do this unconsciously. So with your list of your needs, and your partner has their list, then the next step, number 3, is to become aware of how you have given responsibility for your partner to meet these needs. When we're in relationship, until you become a totally enlightened ascended master, your body, you soul rider, will give responsibility for your needs to your partner. And the journey every single day is to be aware of that. Step number 1, aware that you've given the responsibility. Step number 2, retrieve the responsibility and meet that need deep inside yourself. So step number 3, you take a deep breath in, crank up your courage dial, and say to yourself, I have given responsibility for my needs to my partner. You might even turn to your partner if you're in the webinar, if you're with your partner right now, And you might say to your partner, I have given you responsibility for my safety, for supporting me, and for validating me. And when you acknowledge that and your partner hears that, wow, that's huge. It's like, could be monumental, groundbreaking, earth-breaking energy. So with that acknowledgement, then you start recognizing that because you've given responsibility for these core needs to your partner, hoping that they might meet them, what happens inside you without even realizing it is you feel like the victim. Because anytime we give responsibility for a need away, we become the victim, and so we start acting like a victim. And so then the victim is all about being super defensive and then also being the attacker. So we flop back and forth when we go to the victim to being defensive, and then the what's the word? Huh?
Aggressor.
The aggressor. And you could flip back and forth in 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, be the victim, then you're the aggressor, then you're the attacker, then you could flip back to the victim. And so the way out of this cycle is to retrieve responsibility for meeting those needs off of the partner. And the next practice, you've done your one sentence of, partner, I have given you responsibility for my core needs of ... And then your second sentence to your partner, but you might want to like pause and just let yourself feel that, let your partner feel that. Then the next step is to, partner, it is not your responsibility to meet those needs. Could you just imagine handing that bundle of responsibility for meeting those needs for me? Could you give that back to me? Because I don't want to be a victim anymore. I want to be empowered. And you get to love me, but in a different way. It's not, we don't need to be in a place of love by meeting other people's needs. That's codependent, and it's very destructive and very disempowering. And so by giving responsibility for these needs back to this partner, then you step back into your power and you have the ability to start meeting your needs inside. But when you give responsibility for your needs to somebody at an energetic level, you can't meet your needs because you keep looking to this other person to meet your needs. And so when your partner, hey, honey, could you give me responsibility for loving me, cherishing me, and treating me as this sacred, beautiful being? That's not your job. Partner gives it back. And then you take a deep breath in and you say to yourself, and how could I learn, explore, crank up the courage, how to start appreciating, respecting, listening to myself? Love, it's not your job to listen to me. It's my job to listen deep to my core. And the magical thing that starts to happen when you start practicing these steps is your partner starts reflecting to you how you're meeting your needs inside yourself. You start reflecting to your partner how your partner is meeting their needs inside themselves. When I think about my relationship with Doug, it's like I support him so much, but it's simply because I'm just reflecting how much he's supporting himself. I appreciate him so much, but I'm just reflecting how he deeply appreciates himself. And so we have to have the full cup in order to create the full relationship. And I'm just going to take another moment and go over those steps. So you write down the list of your needs. You acknowledge that your partner has a list of needs. Then you say to your partner, I've given you responsibility for meeting those needs, not your job. Would you be willing to, and I'm going to, take responsibility for those needs back? Not your job. I don't want to burden you down. And now I'm going to start meeting those needs deep in my core. And then it's a contemplative practice. And maybe sometimes it's like, oh, you know what? I need to listen to myself. So I'm going to go into the garden to lose my mind and find my soul. Like, do something for an hour or 2 hours that helps you deeply listen to yourself. Or I need to go take a drive, or I need to cook a pot of soup because it helps me feel tended to. So I'm not looking to my partner to be tended. So be creative with how you start meeting your needs deep in your core. And also be mindful that it's healthy and sustainable. It's not like, well, I have to deeply respect and honor myself, so I'm going to fly to France for 3 months spend 20 grand when I don't have it, right? Like whatever it is. So be realistic, and teeny tiny little simple things you can do in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour of meeting your needs deep in your core. So though that's the practice that you can start engaging in for meeting the needs. Doug, I know that you've got a couple thoughts.
Yeah. So couples, it is said that couples argue. We don't argue. We never argue. We never fight. And we don't stuff things under the rug either. But why? But how does this help you in bringing peace into your relationship? So oftentimes you'll start to feel, you can feel aggravated or annoyed. Let's just take annoyance as an example. You're feeling annoyed because your partner's not paying attention to you, or your partner's not doing something that you want. That is the indicator right there. The moment you feel annoyance at your partner is the moment when you should recognize and reframe this and saying, all right, what need inside of myself am I not fulfilling? Because when you feel annoyance, it's because there's something that's missing inside of you. And so a really good way to grow this is to use those moments of annoyance or little tiny upsets in the relationship. And rather than outwardly blame your partner for the upset, don't blame anybody. Just look at yourself and ask the question, what is this? What's inside of me that's not being fulfilled? Why am I annoyed at Leah? What is she not doing for me that I really should be doing for myself?
And there's another layer to that. If and when you get annoyed with your partner, because it happens to all of us, you can also explore the idea that your partner is being a certain way and you are projecting what you want to attain more of inside yourself onto your partner. So if your partner is impatient and you want to cultivate more patience inside yourself, you are then attached and wanting for your partner to be more patient. Then you're taking responsibility for your partner being more patient. Then you're going to get empathically impacted by that. But also too, you're projecting what you value of they should be more patient onto them, which has a layer of arrogance. And now we're going to get pummeled to be humbled. So we want to lift the attachment of wanting the partner to be more patient off of them. What if they don't want that? You want that for yourself, for your own growth and evolution. And then you take that moment of annoyance and you use the annoyance, the irritation, the anger, the frustration, it's fuel to retrieve all of that attachment, that desire for you cultivating more patience off of your partner, no projecting, hold it deep in your core and ask yourself, how could I use this moment to cultivate more patience with my partner? Now your partner just gave you an enlightenment opportunity and you took it. So those two pieces Doug was talking about, what is the need that you're not meeting deep inside? And then we're projecting what we value. And there is another practice that you and I, Doug, were just talking about in the last month. And it's well, maybe for the last year, but it's the phrase, and what if that didn't matter? So let's say we're sitting at dinner and Doug starts to eat quickly. And I get a little annoyed. And I say to myself, and what if it didn't matter that he's eating quickly? Well, then I can enjoy my meal. Oh, well, let's just do that. So that can be a quick little reframe of, and what if it didn't matter? You take the power off of the situation and then the trigger goes away. There's one more piece that I do want to talk about with needs. And the needs are often trauma or positive experiences that you had when you were a child. So let's say mom and dad made you feel really, really, really safe all the time. You felt so safe with mom and dad. And then you get into an intimate relationship and your partner does not provide that same need for you. And that's a big trigger. Okay, well, mom and dad were holding safety for you and you might have given responsibility for your safety to mom and dad are still holding responsibility for your safety, and you haven't quite learned how to meet that need inside yourself. So then we do that same move of retrieving responsibility off of parents, cultivating the safety inside, lifting our reference points for getting safety off of partner, start meeting those needs of safety inside yourself. And we could switch it and look at it from more of a trauma response of, let's say you weren't safe with mom and dad, and then now you're with a partner and your partner isn't providing safety for you. And so every time your partner doesn't provide safety for you, you go into a huge trigger because of all of the moments when you were a child and you didn't feel safe. And so then you react with all of these unresolved emotional moments from the past, the last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, on your sweet, dear partner who might not even be cultivating and holding safety inside themselves. So there's no way they could provide safety for you until they learn how to find safety inside. You find safety inside, and then you can reflect that upon the relationship. And I think that, even if you've been together for 30 years or 40 years, safety is still number one. And if you want to completely transform your relationship into something that is magical and beautiful and completely no stress whatsoever, and it encourages you to be your best self and be motivated, and yes, you're going to have good days and bad days, but there's going to be this deep level of support. Think about how can you provide safety inside yourself and reflect that upon the relationship every single day. Relationship is work. It's like a garden. And so if we want our garden to be beautiful, we have to tend to it. And safety is the framework. You agree?
I do. This sounds like it's a lot to think about. And it is a lot to think about it, but it's not very hard to do. It's just, you just have to decide that you want to do it. And if you decide you want to do it, then go back and just do these simple little exercises we've been talking about. And Elaine and I always teach incremental change. We want incremental improvement. We're not looking for perfection right out of the gate. If you can make one tiny little incremental improvement in yourself today, and then do it again tomorrow, those little incremental steps over the course of a month or a year, and then years, becomes monumental.
And on that, we're all about the how. And so again, with your pen and paper, just write down a couple of these sentences that you can look at, reflect upon, go for a walk, and just think about one sentence that you write down. And we're going to give you a couple. One sentence would be safety inside. 2 words, safety inside. Second sentence, it's my job to meet my needs inside myself. How can I feel safe, supported, valued in here, deep inside? And I have lots of meditations that walk you through that process. That's my approach. Maybe Doug, you might share 1 or 2 practices tonight of how your approach, but those are 2 sentences: safety inside, I meet my needs deep in my core. And then the other one is, and what if that didn't matter? And the other one is, do you have a good one, Doug?
Mm-mm.
One more. And what if I met my needs deep inside and my partner didn't need to? Because I've got that. I've got that. So that would be another sentence. And then in the first session, we talked about the Buddha bubble. And when you practice the Buddha bubble, so you're sitting across from your partner and one of you is upset and the other one says, and the person that's upset says, will you hold the Buddha bubble? So now the person that's not upset or less upset is like, I'm going to be in Buddha bubble. You are in a safe space and you don't even have to out loud validate the emotions. You can if you feel comfortable with that. So then the person who's sitting here triggered and upset, I'm really upset, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I feel disrespected, but I recognize, and then this is where we layer in the step 2. I recognize that I've given you responsibility for meeting my needs, and that's not your job. And this trigger that I'm experiencing is an opportunity for me to meet my needs deep in my core. So I'm going to take that responsibility back. And I'm going to just take a minute right now and feel into if there was an energy flowing inside me, like a stream, a current, a waterfall, where I deeply valued and respected myself, where I was safe inside myself, where I was committed to me. Will you just hold space for me as I do that process? And then Buddha bubble, yes. And then you do that work so you can layer in this practice in your moments of upset while your partner is holding Buddha bubble and you are retrieving responsibility for your needs. It's incredibly empowering. And actually, it builds a level of intimacy and safety because you're not blaming and shaming your partner. And your partner can do something. We always want to do something for our partners. Tell me what to do. What is it? Hold a safe space for me and encourage me to meet my needs deep in my core. So that's one way to layer in this second practice with this work.
I want to talk for a moment about what happens when you're working with, you have a partner who is not responsive and doesn't want to grow and doesn't want to change. That's really problematic. There's a guy by the name of David Snarch who talks about the crucible of marriage. That's the name of his book.
I think
And
it's called the passionate marriage.
a passionate marriage, correct?
Passionate marriage, but then there's the crucible moment where
you talk about the crucible moment, and he really talks about marriage as being a place, a crucible where people mature, they grow, and it's all the tensions in the marriage take the steel or take the iron and fire it into steel, if it all works according to plan. But there are times when that's not going to happen because the partner is not willing to change, doesn't want to grow, and you get to a point what's known as the two-choice dilemma. And so this is how you deal with situations where you got something's going on in the relationship and your partner is just absolutely unwilling to change or grow or do anything. You make the decision, I'm going to grow. I've made the decision, I'm going to fill my own needs. I'm going to find my own safety. I am going to become a whole and full human being, and I'm going to do whatever I need to do that. And I invite you to come along with me. And if you don't, that's okay. It just means that our relationship is going to be very different. And if it gets to a point of, for example, you've got an addiction of some kind or something else that's pathological, and the partner is not willing to, doesn't have the courage to change, then the two-choice dilemma has to be, I am not going to live with an addicted partner. And you can choose to live in addiction, but if you make that choice, it means that I'm not going to be living with you.
But you make it once you've met your needs, and then you have the ability to make that decision from a place of neutrality.
That's right.
And then when you're totally neutral of like, this isn't working for me, and you've made it very clear, you're making your choice of your path, and that's fine. That neutrality is the indicator that you've gotten to a level of maturity inside yourself. You've had a vibrational shift, which means the next relationship that you're in is not going to be a repeat.
Right.
So take it to your transformation process, because once you do the transformation process, the partner might just come along because that they're being exposed to this vibrational field and they have this empathic positive experience. We can't be attached. We can't be responsible. We want to encourage them to meet their own needs, want for themselves, you want for yourself, and then you're modeling this really strong, coherent field.
Let's take these two questions that have come up, and if anybody else has questions, this is a good time to put them in the chat for us. So let's take that question that just popped up because a couple of people asked, how do you find safety inside? If you have lived a life of fear or a life of trauma or somewhere where you haven't experienced a lot of safety, finding safety inside can be very difficult because you may not even know what safety feels like. My suggestion would be to think about a time when you did feel safe.
But what if you can't remember ever feeling safe?
Then I think you have to just imagine what safety would feel like. So imagine what it would feel like to feel safe inside. Imagine, for example, being cuddled in a bed. You're in a warm bed with a teddy bear and a cup of hot chocolate, and there's nothing that can come and get you, and you just feel nothing but warmth and softness and just a glow around you. Just imagine it.
I'm going to take this one. So I think that's good. And imagine that you are the age that you are right now. And imagine that you go back in time and you sit on the bed of your 2-year-old self. So there's you at 2 and there's you now. And what would it feel like to hold yourself at 2, creating this safe space for your 2-year-old self?
Yeah.
And then there's this weird thing that happens by you giving safety to another, but it's actually you. Some part of you starts to feel what it's like to give safety to another, and you're receiving it. And then you start to feel this feeling of safety inside yourself. So that's one approach. And the other approach would be, again, depending on your belief systems, your structure, the tools that you feel comfortable with, you could ask your spirit mother, your spirit father, angelic beings of love and light. You could ask ascended masters. You could ask an archangel. You could ask Gaia Earth, whoever feels safe to you, to encircle you in another dimension and to hold safety inside themselves and to hold safety for you. And then you're getting positively empathically impacted, and you might wake up every single day and you'd be like, I don't know what safety feels like. I've never felt safe. And you would just say, people, safety inside, huddle. So you've got just this quick little one-liner of safety inside, peeps, and huddle. And it's your angel people and they're holding safety inside. Now, if that's just a little too woo-woo, then do the 2-year-old, you holding yourself at 2. You could also, if you like animals, you could connect with an animal. You could even like go sit outside with a bird or go to the zoo or hold your dog, or think about an animal that you did have that you felt really connected with. Because when we feel love for and with another being, whether they're in animal form or human form, there is safety that starts to get conjured in our heart. And just start being mindful of what is that energy. And then you're learning what safety is. And then you take a deep breath in, pull yourself inside, invite some energetic aspect of you to activate a stronger current of safety in your line. And then I also have lots of meditations on my website where it's walking you through an energetic process of activating safety inside. So that's my approach for how to help you conjure that feeling of safety inside yourself so that you have the ability to hold safety with other people and reflect it into your relationship.
We have, oh, I'm sorry.
There's one other one-liner is, even if somebody doesn't know how to hold safety. I remember when Doug and I were first together and we were gathering tools to repattern our programming. And one of my one-liners with him was, Doug, will you hold safety in your heart right now? And so he just got safe in his heart, and then I could relax and I could start to process. So just wing it. Some part of you knows the vibration of safety.
It's very requested that we role play a situation where one of us is annoyed and the other one is responding to it.
Okay. Should we dive into that one, or is there any other questions that we want to speak to? Maybe let's do role play in a moment.
Okay.
Is it similar when you have an external want, like you want your partner to get a job? Is it just about the need behind what you want? Doug, go for that one.
All right. So I'd ask the question, if you want your partner to get a job, what needs of yours aren't being met? And it could be financial security. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And if you have a need for financial security, then the question is why, what's the problem? Do you have children you have to take care of? Do you have other obligations that are getting in the way of financial security? Do you think that it's your partner's responsibility to provide financial security? And so you just need to start asking yourself these questions and saying, if my partner can't get a job and provide financial security, and I have a need for safety, how do I need to find I need to find
A
a way
way
of finding that safety for myself. And so what's that going to look like?
or support.
Or support.
Because a lot of the times money isn't just money. We project all of these things onto money. So we think, oh, if we have a certain amount of money or partner has a job, then I'll feel safe, then I'll feel secure, then I'll have freedom. So what is it that you've projected onto the money? And then start exploring, well, how could I feel safe and secure and free without putting that weight on partner? And what if partner didn't have a job and then you got creative and was like, okay, well, I'm going to be the one that makes the money. Because again, money is an ebb and a flow. And sometimes your partner has it and sometimes your partner doesn't. And sometimes you have it and sometimes you don't have it, depending on your situation. So I would first retrieve the responsibility, ask yourself, what is the responsibility that you've put on partner for having a job? And if it is it financial, or is it that they have a place to stream their creative energy, and retrieve that responsibility, start meeting that responsibility deep in the core, ask the partner, maybe for them to go through a process of inquiry and say to them, okay, so if you had your dream job, if you were making a certain amount of money, how would that feel inside you? And what would it be like to hold that inside yourself more instead of looking for it externally? And then as we start finding that internally, we're able to then start creating it externally.
Lots of questions. Let's see. So,
and then
we
open
do
up.
want
Can you?
some things from the relationship, even as we meet our own needs within, e.g. presence, general kindness. So how would you name those wants and frame them? Well, okay, that's a good point. I mean, there are some things that are obvious. We want our partners to be kind, right? We don't want to be disrespected. We don't want to, we want people to be human and to be considerate. But again, those are your own needs of self. If you want respect from another person, for example, then how much do you respect yourself? If you want another person to be considerate, how considerate are you of yourself? How do you treat yourself? And so just ask those questions, and that will probably provide the answers to how do you frame the difference between a need or something that you get out of a relationship versus a need that you need to fulfill within yourself. This is a process of self-inquiry, and there's no pat answer for everybody. But I think if you simply frame the question by, all right, he's being mean to me right now. Why is he so mean and hurtful? And then the next question I would ask is, well, we're Leah. Why is Leah being so mean and hurtful? Which she never is. But if that would happen, I would say, so what need am I not fulfilling inside myself?
Or I'm processing some really deep trauma.
Yeah.
So when people are really reactive, they're mean, spiteful, resentful, jealous, afraid, angry, they've got some really deep, unresolved trauma that they are emotionally reacting to, and they don't have any tools. And you might be the only person in their life that they feel safe with. And so they're going to have their messy moment. They're going to emotionally poop. And your journey is come back to step one, validate the emotions and help them start becoming more aware of their emotions. And you might even have a conversation with them and say, I want to create a healthier, happier relationship. Would you be willing to engage in some tools, practicing some tools of just validating emotions? And you do that for a month or for 2 months. And then you layer in the piece of like, okay, and all these needs that we have on, I want you to have a job. I want you to respect me. I want you to be kind. Oh, okay. Well, with all these things that we're wanting from our partner, what are your core needs? And where have you given responsibility for your core needs to the partner? They're not meeting them because they might have different core needs. And so sometimes, like, again, Doug is very kind, but let's say kindness was not his number one, but kindness is my number one. And his number one might be curiosity. So if I know that my number one is kindness and his number one is curiosity, then I can value that he has curiosity and I can value that I have kindness. And then we have this really kind, curious experience where he's reflecting curiosity and I'm reflecting kindness. And so sometimes our partner doesn't have the same priorities, but just knowing that demystifies the experience. It makes it less scary. And then you can start just validating, oh, your number one is curiosity and my number one is kindness and safety. And then your second one is power. Who knows what it is? And we start exploring how we can celebrate and encourage our partner and then also honor our own feelings.
Another question that's really interesting is, could you give an example of meeting a core need of appreciation to oneself? So the practice that I engage in is I think about the wins in my life. And anytime I'm feeling a little off or feeling a little weird, or I feel a little less than or something, something bugging me, I just think about those times in my life when I was just exultant. I achieved something that was for me mind-bogglingly amazing. And I'll tell you a quick story. This is a story that I go back to a lot. It was 1986. I'm a level 3 certified ski instructor. That's, if you don't know what that is, it's the highest level of being a certified ski instructor you can get, and it's tough to get. I failed the exam 3 times. And I was taking the exam the 4th time. I passed all my technical and teaching, but my skiing wasn't strong enough. So we were over at Mammoth Mountain here in California, and it was springtime, and it was the last morning. And I know that I had passed my skiing one day and failed my skiing another day. So this was it. And we're getting ready to go out. I was just clicking on my skis when somebody comes up to me and says, "Doug, there's a phone call for you. Your secretary needs to talk to you." And at that time, I was a trial lawyer. And I said, she knows what I'm doing. What the heck is she doing? No, this is really urgent. She said, you absolutely, emergency, you have to talk to her. So I get on my skis, run in, get to the phone. And she says, I know you're in your last day of your exam, but I just want you to know we got the decision in the XYZ case. And you just won your client $10 million. Biggest case of my career, just won it. I mean, and I went back out and I was so pumped. I said, I don't care what happens today. This is the biggest day of my professional career. And of course I went out and crushed it on the skiing. So not only did I, on that day, did I win this case, but I also earned my level 3 certification. And that was one of the biggest days of my life. And I think right now you can see me light up as I think about it.
And you were really happy.
Oh my God. Beyond happy.
Over the moon.
So when I get down, which doesn't happen very often, but I just tell that story to myself. Remember when? And I light up and think about, man, talk about some major accomplishments in one day. That really is incredible.
And I'm going to layer something in, because in my work, it's all about the inner. And so you would deeply value the strength, the courage, the fortitude, the resilience of, like, you failed 3 times, you're doing it a 4th time, how hard you worked. But it's like this perseverance and valuing the perseverance that you have deep inside, as opposed to placing the reference point for appreciating self externally on outer accomplishments. Outer accomplishments are the reflection of something that you've attained inside yourself. And in the 3D world, it's easy to just use the outer, but then there's also an inner appreciation of your resilience.
And here was the culmination of years and years and years of work on this case, and years and years and years of training to try to pass this exam, all culminating in the same moment. It was really pretty phenomenal. Do we want to do that role play?
We do, but there's a couple questions that I want to speak to. And one of them is, and we'll go for another 15 minutes and then we'll complete. And again, if anybody has more questions, we're happy to address it. There was another question about if I meet all of my needs internally, and I can, why would I want a partner? What does a partner truly add? So from my perspective, a partner is a reflection, and also a partner is a place where they encourage you to be even more wonderful, more lovely, more growing, more thriving, more awakening. And things come up in relationship. You get challenged, we get challenged. And so we use the challenges to grow. It's something to push against, but not be challenged by. So that's my answer on that one. Doug, I think you've got a layer.
Yeah, I think that when you're able to do all of this work, and when you come into a marriage like what Elaine and I have, everything is amplified. I mean, amplified at a exponentially compared to if you were just alone, because you both have this internal state of meeting your own needs, of serving others, of doing whatever in your work and your play and everything, and it's like you're inside a nuclear furnace in terms of the energy that it creates for you, and it just makes you more powerful and able to do even more, because everything is being amplified and resonating back and forth. It's kind of indescribable how it works, but that's why relationships are so powerful.
There is another layer on that one, and that is that when you're meeting your needs inside yourself and you have a partner, you are then able to say to your partner, hey, would you just come over and kiss me? And if your partner has the time and the bandwidth to come over and kiss you, great, wonderful. But if your partner doesn't have the bandwidth and is like, I'm really busy, can't, you are already meeting your needs deep inside. And so you're not afraid of asking for your needs. If you are afraid of asking for your needs, that is an indicator you are not meeting your needs inside enough. And I remember being in relationship with Doug very early on, like the first year, 2 years, and I was really nervous about asking for my needs. And every time I was nervous about asking for my needs, I stopped. I did not ask for my needs. I met my needs deep in my core until I wasn't worried about his potential rejection. And so I just got stronger and stronger inside. And then I got to the place where I was like, hey, will you come over and hug me and just tell me how beautiful I am? And he'd come over and hug me and say, you're beautiful. And I was able to receive it because I was giving it to myself. So again, the reflection is this amplification of this incredible energy inside yourself and with your partner. There was another really great question that I want to get to, and it says, my partner is fun to be with and often plans our activities. And then I feel like I'm doing everything he wants to do, and I don't have a voice or a say.
I think you have a difficult conversation there you got to have. It could be, everybody's heard of the 6 languages of love, and maybe his language of love is doing that, and that's how he expresses his love. But if he does it to the degree that it completely crowds you out so that you're not feeling heard or appreciated or supported, or you're being ignored, then that's a problem. And I think you need to sit down and have a conversation with him about that. And the conversation would go like, I want you to be in the Buddha bubble, explain what the Buddha bubble is. I just want to kind of talk something through with you. So find a safe, good time to do it. Just say, I love the fact that you plan everything and we have a lot of fun and we're going places, but sometimes I feel like I'm just along for the ride. I'm just being ignored. And I really don't have
or not acknowledged.
We're not acknowledged. And I don't have.
And then my opinion doesn't matter.
My opinion doesn't matter. And I'm not really consulted. We don't collaborate on this stuff. You just go out and do it. And you're really good at it. I get that. But I feel like, this lack of collaboration means that the relationship is kind of one-sided. And I don't know how to solve that problem. What's your feeling about it? And then they'll start talking, and that's when you start affect labeling and listen to them.
Yeah. And then also too, making sure that you're honoring your own needs of like going, you know what, I'm going to take this afternoon and I'm going to do what I want to do. And if you want to join me, great. But if you don't, that's okay too. This is what I really want to do.
That's pretty good too. Yeah, just go out and do your own thing. What do you want to do? And just go out and do it and invite him. But if he doesn't want to come along, it's no big deal.
And also too, like, again, all relationships are different. But if I said to Doug, okay, Doug, I want to go for a 5-mile hike, and he'd be like, well, I only want to hike for a mile. I'd be like, all right, well, you can sit and wait because I'm going to do that 5-mile hike. And be like, okay, great. I'm going to bring my book. And then he gets to sit and hang after he's in for a mile. So be really clear of what you want to do, what you've committed to do, and hold to it. Also to the phone, the mobile device. Hey, let's go to breakfast. I want to go to breakfast. Do you want to join me? And if you do join me, it's going to be a media-free breakfast because I'm planning the breakfast. I'll even buy breakfast. And if you're okay having a media-free breakfast, then we can go to breakfast. So again, it's from the place of this is what you want to do, and this is your framework, and you're inviting them, and they can say, nah, thanks. And you don't take rejection because you're already meeting your needs deep in your core. Again, this is a process, teeny tiny little incremental changes, and just start doing I'm safe inside. I'm safe inside, meeting my needs deep in my core.
Doing that kind of work, getting to that level is a real indicator of success. When you can say, hey, I'm going to go to breakfast. I'd love you to have you come along, but no phones. And I'm going to go to breakfast. I'm going to leave my phone in my car. And I'd love to have you come along, but we leave our phones in the car.
Right.
And
if you're good with that, then great.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go have some fun. If not, that's fine too. Enjoy yourself, and I'll see you when I get back. And you got to be ready for the no, and the no has to be okay.
And if you doubt it, like maybe they are going to bring their phone with them, then you can be like, afterwards, I'm going to go do errands. So you might want to bring your car, and I'll have my car. Again, building in freedom and making sure that it really works for you, but from a place of neutrality and kindness. We are going to do the role play, and just checking. Being witnessed. We're going to be talking about being witnessed in the last webinar, the 5th one. What is the dynamic that is taking place when one person in the relationship is walking on eggshells with the other?
I'll take that one.
Yeah, and we talked about it, that defensiveness, the victim, and also like deeply wounded with the trauma and lots of emotions that are unprocessed.
What's going on is you've got topics that need to be talked about that aren't being talked about. There are elephants on the table that need to be brought out. I mean, people have to confront issues, and they're probably, and if people are on eggshells, that's because you've got, maybe somebody's got anger issues, or they've got reactivity issues, where they're extremely defensive and they get triggered easily. Those are all indicators that there are deeper layers that really need to be uncovered and talked about. And that's when you need to have a difficult conversation. And you can do it yourself if you've got the skills. You bring me in if you need to do that. But that's the only way you're going to deal with that. I've been in a relationship where that existed, and I didn't have the tools that I have today, and it only got worse. It didn't get any better. Today it would be easy. Today I would never let our relationship would never get anywhere close to that. But supposing it's some other relationship, maybe a professional relationship, I wouldn't let it get there, because I'd say, I'm observing that there's some tension here, and there's some unresolved stuff we've got to talk about, because every time I come around, you're really upset and nervous. Let's sit down and talk about this. And then we'll do the difficult conversation. I like to call them transformative conversations. We'll do the transformative conversation. But I've got the skill set to do it. And so it works. And that's how you deal with it. And if the other person doesn't want to talk about it because they're too frightened, or they don't have courage, or they're too wounded, then you have to decide what you want to do. It's the two-choice dilemma again.
Or just gather tools.
Or gather tools, right?
Right, open to exploring just some basic tools that we talk about in this webinar.
Right. Second question is, how do you continue to nurture and strengthen a partnership that isn't long distance with difficulty?
Safety, build safety.
Build safety. I would say that, we've all learned about Zoom since the pandemic, and I like Zoom. And you can affect label, and you can have very deep conversations on Zoom. And if you want proof of that, go to my YouTube channel and watch the conversation that I facilitated with Mars and Michelle. And we did that on Zoom, and it was powerful. So you can have deep conversations on Zoom. And so you're going to nurture the relationship by building emotional intimacy, by listening people into existence, affect labeling. And that's the skill.
Doug, are these situations, conversations, contact not appropriate, like when partner's been sexually abused, or if it's
Oh,
possible
I
to
think at that
resolve?
level, you know, that's when you really need professional help. I mean, you need to bring in psychologists, psychiatrists. You need to bring in, you know, when there are such, I mean,
Well,
yeah,
depending on the level of awareness, and depending also on the partner and how much work they've done, if they've already been actively engaged in healing from that trauma, if it's really hidden and deep and they haven't processed it,
then you're going to need professional help.
and also validating the emotions. So when you're in an intimate relationship with somebody who has deep trauma, validating the emotions, getting that skill set down is essential. And Doug, you have that whole, what is it, how many courses, like how many seminars is it, webinars for the emotional competency?
Oh, well, no, I've got the course on emotional competency. So, okay, conversations, adult child and abusive parent. Yeah, I get it. So you're in relationship with somebody who's been sexually abused or has an abusive parent. I think Alea's right. I think it's the degree that you can talk about this is really the degree that the person who's been traumatized, the victim survivor is what they call them. They're victim survivors. How well have they processed this? Have they had a chance to process it? Have they gotten the help they needed? You know, and if they have, great, then you can probably work with it. If they're still pretty raw with it, then
Silently.
yeah, you can. Affect labeling is really powerful, really helpful. If they want to talk about it, then you can label their emotions as they come up. That can be really powerful, but
And label their needs.
and label their needs. But
You didn't feel safe and you really need to feel safe.
right,
And what would make you feel safe right now?
right. But I also think that this gets into an area where
It
more,
can be tricky
yeah, more professional help is going to be needed.
and you want to be careful.
Yeah, really careful.
Yeah. Okay, should we shift gears and do role play?
Yeah, we'll do a role play of annoyance.
Okay, to role play a situation where one of you is annoyed. I'm going to be annoyed because you're so good. You're so good at.
Okay. You're annoyed. You rarely get annoyed at me, so this will be interesting.
Okay. I'm making something up. Hang in there. All right. This is not true, Doug, but I'm just using.
Right. You're
yesterday. Yeah, making something up. So Doug, you made chicken stock and it was on the stove for like 3 days, and I don't have a lot of time, even though I'm taking the week off. and it's still in the pot. And when are you going to take care of it?
So Alea, you're annoyed and frustrated,
I am, because it's your stock.
and you don't feel appreciated right now, and you feel a little disrespected and ignored.
I do. I feel like you don't respect my time.
Yeah, so you don't feel respected, and you don't feel appreciated, and you don't feel supported,
And you're thinking that I'm going to do a job that I don't have the grids for.
and you're feeling like you're feeling like you're being taken advantage of.
Just not respected.
Yeah, you're not feeling respected. You're disrespected.
Yeah.
And that makes you feel sad.
Yeah. I mean, do you really love me?
Yeah, there are times when you feel abandoned and unloved.
And notice I just threw a question at him and he didn't answer. Good job, Doug. Do you really love me?
You feel abandoned and unloved right now.
I do. I do. I don't. I mean, like if you had done the chicken stock, I feel more love from you.
So,
That would be like how you would show your love.
so you feel abandoned and unloved,
Yeah.
and you feel sad and grief.
Yeah. And I'm scared. I'm scared. Maybe you're going to leave me.
So you're really scared and anxious and frightened,
Yeah.
and you feel distressed and unhappy and sad.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
No. I cry. Will you hold me? Cry.
Of course. All right, a couple things to observe. First of all, you don't take any of this personally. that's why you have to ignore the words. You never answer a question. Never answer a question. Don't fall into that trap. All you do is affect label. And notice how I use the layers. I started with annoyance, which is a form of anger. And then she said frustrated. That's another form of anger. So anger, annoyance. She wasn't pissed off, but she was annoyed and frustrated. Then we went into the disrespect stuff. There was a lot there. She didn't notice that I said disrespect. And then she said, I don't feel respected. So same thing, but different words with it. It's just taken in a different way. So I picked up on that and said, oh, you don't feel respected. Because before I'd said you felt disrespected. Oh, you don't feel respected. No, I don't feel respected or heard or appreciated or supported.
And the brain won't process. The brain isn't processing. Like, I'm not even listening to what he's saying. By him validating my emotions, I'm checking in what are my emotions.
Right.
I can't even hear what he's saying.
Right. And so then we went to the next layer. I didn't quite, okay, so once I know that, then I know that there's going to be some worry, anxiousness, anxiety, concern. Then this is very common. She said, no, I'm not feeling loved. You don't love me. Or do you love me? Something like that. Okay, that's the
if you did the chicken stock, then that would mean that you love me. Do you even love me?
That's right. So that's an accusation, right?
Attack. I'm attacking.
That's an attacking question. There's no right answer to that question. So instead of answering the question, I simply said, oh, you feel really abandoned. You don't feel loved. And I had to say that a couple of times before she processed it. And then I went up a layer. I went to sadness. I said, you feel really sad and distressed and unhappy and you don't feel connected. And then she finally got to the core of it, which is, I'm really worried.
And the fear.
I'm afraid you're going to leave me. So you're really afraid and nervous.
Abandonment.
And you're really afraid you're going to be abandoned. So it's a little different than feeling abandoned. She has the fear of abandonment, which is a fear emotion, which is the third layer.
And then there's rejection, abandonment. But yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And we will email the link for the layers of emotion.
Yeah. And so that's how you do it. And the trick is to just hang in there and simply reflect what they're saying or what they're feeling without reacting to it, which is why you have to learn to ignore the words.
And it's taken me years to follow the layers, because normally I'll just like go to the deep core root of it, especially when I'm in session, because people are already in a safe space. And so I can go to the deep root. But it actually might be more powerful to really watch those layers and just take somebody very slowly down through every single layer. And Doug, you do it brilliantly.
Yeah, you want to work through the layers because they're all there. You can go deep, but if you miss all the other layers, you're not going to calm them down. You're not going to calm the brain down. So you want to make sure you hit as many of the layers as you can.
Study the layers. Study the layers.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Any other questions anybody has?
Oh, abusive parent. Sorry, just clarifying. Conversation as adult child of an abusive parent.
Like when a parent has been sexually abusive.
Or just abusive.
I think so. I think, where conversations are not appropriate. Well, I think any conversation is appropriate. It's just it's really more an issue of willingness and readiness. I mean, I mediated clergy sexual abuse cases, and one of the things that you do in those cases is you determine the readiness of the parties to come to the table and talk. And many times the victim survivors are not ready, and so mediation is inappropriate. Same thing when I was doing criminal work, victim offender mediation. So in every single case, you meet the victim and the victim's family, and you decide, are these people ready for this process, this mediation process? And most of the time they were, but there were times when they weren't, and you would just have to say, you're not ready for mediation yet. And so it's a matter of readiness.
And one of the first steps that you can do, so if you have had a parent who has been abusive, emotionally, verbally, sexually, your very first step as the person who was abused is to retrieve your power back. You just imagine that that parent, that abuser, took little nuggets of your power. And every day you just start retrieving all of these nuggets of power that were taken from you in those moments of trauma. So that would just be like the first thing that comes to my mind of how you can start healing your own self, and don't even think about being in relationship with that person. First, gather safety and power back in your own core.
So
And let's wrap up in about 5 minutes.
yeah.
So
the question is, do you think someone should feel they must meet up with an abusive parent as an adult? Is it okay to just say no? It's absolutely okay to say no.
absolutely 100%.
100% it's okay to say no. That's, and it's somebody's, boy, this really drove me crazy in the abuse cases, because people would say, you have to forgive, you have to forgive, you have to forgive this person. Whenever I hear that, I just want to punch those people out. That is so multiplying the abuse by telling somebody you have to forgive. It's just heaping more abuse on them. And telling somebody you should really go talk to your abusive parent, and making it a should and a moral obligation, that's abusive. That's just reigniting the abuse. No way, no how. Walk away from people that tell you that, and don't really listen to them again. What's really going on, I learned this later, is that when people impose their moral standard on you, say you should go talk to your parent even though your parent was sexually abusive to you, or you should forgive, what they're really doing is trying to soothe their own anxiety around the situation where you, as the victim survivor, have been abused. And so if you've been a victim survivor, you know what I'm talking about. People giving you a lot of shoulds. When they're giving you the shoulds, they're emotionally invalidating you, and they are trying to mean well, but what they're really doing is soothing the anxiety, because they have no idea how to cope with somebody who's had the experience that a victim survivor has had. And rather than be honest about that and say, you know, I don't even know how to begin to interact with you because of your experience. I really don't. It's just so I can't even.
But they might not be unconscious that they're in that place.
Right. Well, a conscious person would say something like that, or a conscious person would go to affect label and not do that. But somebody who's not emotionally competent or not well trained emotionally is going to try to soothe that unconscious anxiety, and that's why they do that. And it's abusive, but it's unconscious, and they're not meaning ill. They just are immature, emotionally immature, and don't know any better. And so they engage in that conduct because they don't know any other way to soothe their anxiety. Same reason that people emotionally invalidate, same reason that people jump to problem solving too early, same reason that people try to, when somebody's verbally aggressive, a person tries to be defensive or justify, excuse, rationalize, appease, or apologize too early. It's all trying to soothe anxiety.
Right. So taking a deep breath in, we're going to do a little wrap up. Pull yourself into your core. The breath is very powerful. It's simple and powerful. It has the ability to pull you deep in. And as you pull yourself deep in, take a moment to feel into one core need that you have. Start exploring using your creative energy, your intellect, your energetic wisdom to ponder how you can start meeting that need deep inside. And then when it gets reflected, be in gratitude that you are meeting that need inside and that they are the reflection. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Doug,
When's our next session?
It's in 6 weeks.
All right.
So I'll send out the dates, and thank you all so much for joining us. We'll send out the links in just a moment, and we are going to be creating transcriptions of this and also posting these on YouTube. Also, please invite others that you think might resonate with this material to get this free webinar series. There's going to be 3 more of these webinar classes.
Are we doing 5 or 6?
I think we're doing a total of 5. So okay. Today is number 2, so we'll have 3 more. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful evening.